Well, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome all of you. Welcome to everybody here at North Richland Hills Center. Welcome to everybody online as well. And one of my favorite things about being back in person as well as online is I can hear you guys. So can you make some noise so that everybody online can hear you as well? Because we miss all of you. And some who are watching from home wish they could be here, but for certain reasons can't. So I just love that we can hear each other and just let each other know that we're for each other, right? I love you guys seeing wearing the T-shirt, using the hashtag. We're just trying to let DFW. So thank you guys so much for participating in that. Today we are continuing in a series called "I Never Said That." Have you ever been misquoted or misrepresented with something that you said? You say, "Hey, I never said that." And there's some great quotes about money. We're going to talk about money a little bit today. It's going to be fun, I promise. Don't worry, it's not that big a deal. But there's some fun quotes about money that you've probably heard before. Of course, the timeless "Mo money, mo problems." Do we have that one? Mo money, mo problems. I just wonder who said that, because who didn't say that? Who said that? Was it A or B? A, King Solomon. This is a little Sunday school joke for all of you who went to Sunday school. If you didn't go to Sunday school, you're like, I don't get the joke at all. It's okay. We'll fill you in later. Or is it B, Mace, Biggie, and Puff Daddy? Who thinks it's B, Mace, Biggie, and Puff Daddy? Who does not even know who Mace, Biggie, and Puff Daddy even are? It's B, just to let you know there. Here's our next quote, our big money quote. Money doesn't grow on trees. If you look this up, there's a lot of people that are attributed and they just don't know. So is it A, unknown, or is it B, your dad? And that's right, it's B, your dad. It's the most dad thing that has ever been said right there. But the money quote that I want to look at today, the idea is, in this series, are there things that maybe we think are in the Bible, we think God said, but God would say, I never said that, or it's not actually in the Bible. Here's the quote that I want to look at today. Money is the root of all evil. Have you heard this before? Yes. I'm sure you've heard it a lot. I've heard it a lot. There's a picture that I saw of a tip jar in a restaurant. It says, money is the root of all evil, so cleanse yourself here. Purge yourself here. So the question for us today is, if money is the root of all evil, just thinking about wanting money, do you feel guilty about that? Or you say, yeah, a little bit more money, would that make your life a little bit easier? Would that be better? Possibly, maybe, absolutely. I'd take a little bit more money. That could come my way. But maybe you've heard this phrase, money is the root of all evil, and then you felt real guilty about even thinking that. Money is the root of all evil. I just want you to see today that when you hear the phrase, money is the root of all evil, it stopped a little short there, didn't you? The whole phrase kind of brings more context. So let me explain this. Is money the root of all evil? This quote comes from 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. I'm going to give you some context here in a minute, but just immediately you'll see that in its original context, this is sort of a misrepresentation of what the actual quote is. The actual quote says, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. And yeah, different translations of the Bible might translate that a little different, but it always has to do with the love of money. That's what is a root of evil. So who are the money lovers? I'm not pointing any fingers, I promise you. But maybe you think, oh, that's the Scrooge McDucks of the world, swimming in all their gold in their basement. That's the Jeff Bezos people. That's the Bill Gates. They're the money lovers. Not me. Not you. But I'd like for us to just examine our own hearts today and ask ourselves, do I love money? It's an important question to think about. The Bible answers what a money lover is in Ecclesiastes 5, verse 10. Very simple. It's going to make a lot of sense. You're going to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It says, whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. That is a very revealing definition. Because I read that and I say, okay, I'm definitely guilty of this. Have we ever felt like what I make, what I have, is never enough? That quote right there was written by King Solomon, by the way, who's a guy who knew money probably better than anybody who's ever lived. He's one of the wealthiest billionaires ever. And that's why I quoted him earlier, mo money, mo problems. King Solomon had more money than just about anybody you can ever imagine. And he also had a ton of problems that came with it. And he knew personally the struggle with never being satisfied. It was never enough. Never satisfied with what he had. It's never enough, is it? Our paycheck's never enough. The sale is never enough. The bonus is never enough. We need another bonus. We're going to need a raise next year, and then the next year is going to come. And the commission from the sale is never enough. We need another one to come. And that's the problem with money. How much do you need to be happy? I'm serious. If you would think about how much do you need in order to really be satisfied? You say, well, if I had that enough, then I would be satisfied. I wouldn't want any more. How much would it be? I'm not asking you to actually answer, but just think about that. How much would you actually need to feel totally secure? If I had X amount of dollars in my bank account, or if you say, well, I don't trust my bank account, so I need gold. I don't care what it is. What would you need in order to feel satisfied and secure, like it's enough? How much would you need? And virtually everybody that I know, myself included, and if you're being honest, you would say the same, everybody's answer is always more than I have right now. More than I have right now. A little bit more, it's always more. Let's get some context for what Paul is talking about here in 1 Timothy chapter 6. This is a letter that Paul wrote to one of his proteges, a younger guy in ministry named Timothy. He's just trying to encourage him and build him up in the faith and teach him how to build a godly community of church leadership, okay? So in verse 6, we see some context for what Paul's talking about here. And I'm just going to kind of jump into his thought midstream here. He says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. And I just want you to see that this section is not about money. In fact, what I'm going to talk to you about today isn't really about money. It's about godliness. And a key to godliness is contentment. So if you think this message today is about money, it's actually about contentment. It's about being satisfied with what you have and being able to use what you have in a way that's enjoyable. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty today. I actually want you to walk out of here feeling like, you know what? I could not feel guilty about what I have, and I could actually use it in a way that I enjoy and makes me feel really good. That's my goal today. I just want you to know that. And he says, godliness with contentment is great gain. Can I be satisfied with what I have? That doesn't mean you're not free to pursue more. I'm just saying, could you say, honestly, could you get to a place where I'm satisfied, or I'm content is the word that he uses? Am I content with what I have? Am I content with my paycheck? Am I content with what God has given me? Or am I just constantly feverishly chasing something else to a place where I'm just totally discontent? Verse 7, he goes on, he says, for we brought nothing into the world, we can take nothing out. So it's true. Easy to understand in our heads, hard to understand in our hearts. But you'll never see a hearse pulling a U-Haul. Not going to happen. There's the old joke. I'm sorry for using an old preacher joke today, but I don't use them super often. Somebody do the old preacher joke today, okay? The old joke, a wealthy guy nearing the end of his life. So he filled a briefcase full of cash and put it up in the attic. Have you heard this joke before? And his wife said, what are you doing? And he said, well, I'm putting it in the attic so that when I die, my spirit will float up. I'm just going to grab that briefcase if I can on the way. I just want to, just in case, take it with me. Well, he died. And sure enough, not too long after that, his wife was up in the attic. She forgot. She saw that briefcase full of cash up in the attic. She said, shook her head, that fool. I told him to put it in the basement. He could get it on his way down. Sorry. That's my old preacher joke for the day right there. But Paul says, we brought nothing into the world. We can take nothing with you out of the world. Verse 8. Paul teaches his protege. He says, this is kind of the mindset we should have. If we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Wow. Could you or I think it's challenging to say, could you or I just be content with food and with clothing? And maybe you think that's nowhere in the Bible. I just read it. And just to say, could we be content with just food and with clothing? Maybe you think, you know what? Honestly, I could be okay with that. I could get through life just trusting that God's going to provide and knowing that there's a community around me that's going to provide with my needs. If I just had food and clothing, I'm content with that. And, of course, an iPhone. Like you got to have an iPhone if you're going to communicate with other people in this day and age. And Netflix. You got to have Netflix because how are you going to go to sleep at night? And you've got the phone already, so, Netflix, it's not that much. It's just a little bit there. And AirPods. I got to have AirPods because I don't want to bother other people around me while I'm watching Netflix on my phone, but I could just get by with that, because the iPhone comes with a charger. I could use other people's electricity. That would be fine. And a car. I got to have a car. You got to have a car to get from point A to point B, and you're getting out of your car and stuff. You're going to need a bag to carry your stuff, but then you got more stuff that you can put in your bag, so you might as well get more stuff to put in your bag to take with you from point A to point B. And do you see how something so basic turns into more and more and more and more and more? And we spend our days looking at ads, being surprised. Look at this thing I didn't know existed until a second ago, and now I see it. I need it because I needed more. I was totally content 3 seconds ago, but now I've seen this, and now I'm not content anymore. I need this thing. I need more and more and more. It's crazy because if you've ever been to another country, especially an impoverished country, third world country, and you see people who have so much less, and I promise you, if you've ever experienced that, or if you ever have the chance to experience that, you have or you will walk away from it saying, they have so much less stuff, but I feel like they have so much more in other areas. Like they seem to have so much more trust, so much more joy, so much more contentment, so much more passion, maybe more peace. So how is that possible? Because they don't have as much as me, and yet they have much more than me. It's a crazy thing to experience. It's crazy. This is the truth that we want to share with you today. Discontentment can make a rich person poor, whereas contentment can make a poor person rich. And you can see somebody with contentment and you say, I want that. What? Oh, contentment, peace, joy, trust. The ability to live a life that's satisfied with what they have and uses what they have well. From time to time on social media, it'll pop up on my feed. You ever see this? It's like celebs riding the subway. I saw this one headline. It said 20 photos of famous celebrities slumming it on the subway as if they were regular people. I just thought that was a hilarious headline. Pictures like Tom Hanks riding the subway, Jay-Z riding the subway. It's Chris Martin behind him from Coldplay, by the way. Katie Holmes riding the subway. She's totally not ready for that picture. Jake Gyllenhaal looking super ominous there, like he's about to rob somebody. And then it always comes back to 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon right there, bringing home the bacon, I might add, on a sermon like this. But it's like we can't believe it. How are you not in a limo or riding in a helicopter? No, I'm satisfied with this mode of transportation. It's fine. I'm content to ride the subway. It's like we're shocked to see people with lots of money using self-restraint when it comes to money and to finances. Because as Paul says, we all get this. Verse 9, he says, those who want to get rich fall into a temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. Our desire for more often just causes ruin. It can really destroy families and lives, jobs, careers. Happens all the time, doesn't it? For, and here's our verse in context, the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. A root. Not the root, it's just a root. One of the big roots of evil in our lives. I don't want you to raise your hand, but at the end of verse 10 there, it says, some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Do you know anybody who chased after money and in doing so walked away from their relationship with God and they've just been hollow ever since? You don't really have to raise your hand, but do you know anybody who did that? Do you know somebody who got in a fight with somebody about finances and it totally destroyed their friendship? Do you know somebody like that? Do you know somebody who, because of a tension over finances within their family, maybe an inheritance or something, an estate, and it just completely split their family and they haven't talked to them in years? This past week, I read an article that said 25% of Americans have an estranged family member that they haven't talked to for an average of 4 years. Often this has to do with money. The love of money. can be a root of all kinds of evil in our lives. So maybe you hear this and you think money is bad. Let me just say money is not bad. Having money is not bad. Using money is not bad. Investing and reaping money is not bad. You'll see all sorts of tips for how to do all the things I just talked about all throughout the Bible. Loving money, on the other hand, well, that's about as dangerous as you could wrap your mind around. That's why Jesus warned. He said, you cannot serve both God and money. One has to take priority in your heart. Notice how interesting. He doesn't say you can't serve God in power, because we often think, oh, I want to be God, and God has to be God. You say, well, that could compete for devotion in my life. Or it doesn't say God in popularity or God in sex. You think these different things that compete for God's devotion in our lives. No, he says the number one competitor for God's priority in your life can be money. And so we have to be careful with that. We have to get this right. Because money can be the very thing that distracts you from the true riches that God wants for your life. I want you to hang on to that idea, because God has true riches that he wants for your life. I'm going to talk about that here in a moment. But if you just pursue the love of money and all that stuff, you're going to miss out on the true riches that God wants for you. So Jesus very plainly, very clearly warns us you cannot serve both God and money. This has led to two extreme teachings that you may have heard about, or if you haven't heard these terms, you understand the concept. The first is the idea of prosperity gospel. Number one, prosperity gospel. It's the belief that if you are godly, or if you have enough faith, or if you're generous enough, then God has to bless you with more money and make you wealthy, make you rich. Number two is what we might call the poverty gospel. Poverty gospel teaches that if you're really righteous, then you're going to be poor, because you'll forsake all of the luxuries of this world and all of the comforts. I mean, if you have those things, then you're a money-loving, money-grubbing person, just a terrible person, on and on. So which is it here? If I'm wealthy, am I blessed? Or if I'm wealthy, am I evil? Am I poor because I haven't followed God? Or is me being poor proof that I follow God? It's going to get really confusing. But again, I just want to refocus us and say it's not about the dollar, it's about the heart. It's about the heart. Because I've met poor people. They're some of the most generous people I've ever met. They'd give you the shirt off their back. You know why? Because they love you more than they love money. I've also met poor people who would love to steal a shirt off your back and sell it. So it's about the heart, isn't it? And I've met rich people who are some of the most generous people. They can't give their stuff away fast enough. They can't outgive God. The faster they give it away, the more it seems to come in. I can't even explain it. But I've mostly met rich people who don't think they're rich because they don't feel rich. You say, well, I don't feel rich, therefore I'm not rich. You feel poor, and so the pursuit of money just consumes your mind, and you're devoted to it. You worship it. You never have enough. You say, well, that's not me. You ever heard us say, hey, take time to pray and read your Bible every morning, and your reaction was, I don't have time for that. I got to get to work to make money. Seems like in those quick moments you reveal, oh, I guess between God and money just won that battle. Maybe money has taken priority in my heart and in my mind. And again, I just want to ask you, how many more raises would you need? And how many more years would it take before you would finally feel like it's enough? Say, it's not enough right now, but I would need this many more raises, this many more commissions, this many more sales, many more years, and then it would be enough. I just want to ask you, did that work for your parents? No. Are they content? Probably not. Powerful thought. The sin is not in having it. The sin is in loving it. And the sin is not in using it. The sin is in misusing it. Isn't that true of all of God's blessings? The trouble comes, the danger comes when we misuse what has been given to us. That's why Paul follows this up just a few verses later in verse 17. Maybe you've heard this before. If you haven't, this is a really interesting section. He says, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, not to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain. I think we all know how uncertain things are financially, economically right now this year. Shaky ground, it feels like. But instead, put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Doesn't say you have to feel guilty about that. He says you can enjoy it. It's all about prioritizing where you put your trust and your hope. saying, God has given me this, I'm content, and he will richly provide everything you need for your enjoyment. Now, before you hear this section and think, well, that's somebody else, because he just commanded those who are rich to do these things, we got to find the rich people to teach them this, right? That's a whole idea for another sermon for another day, but I just want to give you this perspective. Pastor Drew came across an article a couple weeks ago that said this, claimed this: if you own your car, you are in the top 9% of the wealthiest people in America. Way to go, congratulations. Top 10% if you own your car. Wow, did you know that you're the top 10 in the world if you own your car? Not if you own your Lexus, not if you own your Mercedes, not if you own your G-Wagon. If you own your vehicle, you're in the top 9% of the wealthiest people in the world. So that might be a perspective change for you or me. It might mean you are technically rich. Even though you don't feel it, you are. So let's be good at it. That's what Paul's saying. If you're rich, let's be good at it. Let's how do we be good at it? Verse 18, he says, here's how you be good at it. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. I'll tell you who is blessed, and I don't have to tell you this because you know it. You know who's blessed. It's not about who has a lot or a little when it comes to dollars. I'll tell you who's blessed, and you know this. It's about who's content with what they have today. About whether you're grateful for what you have and whether you use it for the glory of God. That's somebody who is blessed. They already are. And Paul says that's the way. In this way, you will lay up treasures for yourselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that you may take hold of the life that is truly life. So I know that we were talking about that phrase earlier, which says money is the root of all evil. What if instead of focusing on the misquote, because we know it's the love of money is the root of all evil, but instead of focusing on the misquote, money is the root of all evil, what if from what we learned today, what if you could walk out of here and just hang with me for a second, let me explain this to you. What if the new phrase, instead of talking about the root or the source of evil, what if we talked about what is produced from the godliness and from the generosity and the contentment? Because you know what Paul just told us is produced? What the fruit of that kind of life is? The good life. The good life is the fruit of generosity. I'm telling you that teaching that we just looked at is totally playing to selfish human motives. It's saying if you want to live a good life, of the life that you want of satisfaction and contentment and feeling good, then it comes from generosity and contentment. The ability to be satisfied with what you have. That's going to produce happiness. It's going to produce feeling good, the good life that everybody wants. But if you pursue the love of money, you're not going to get the good life. And that's what's so deceiving about this. Like, I got to get money to get the good life. No, I'm telling you, if you pursue that, it can destroy and pierce you with many, many griefs. Show me someone who's content with what they have right now, who manages their money well, who sacrifices what they need and instead opts for things that they can afford, who is generous out of the first fruits of what they receive, and who loves people and who loves God instead of using people and God to get more money. That's a person who's blessed. And they will avoid, as Paul says, being pierced with many griefs. Griefs that you know that come from the love of money. Division, stress, fighting, regret, narcissism. You know money is one of the number one causes of divorce, right? It just is. Those things are nobody's financial goals. But if you keep loving money, those are the results that you're going to get. Can I tell you about my financial goals? And I want to build generosity goals into my finances as well. For one, Kathleen and I, my wife and I, we're tithers, which means we give 10% to the church. Why? Maybe that sounds crazy to you. Well, because we know that we know firsthand how generous this church is. We know that 10% is going to be used way better than what I would use personally. But maybe you still feel like that's crazy. I think it's crazy that you can't live off of 90% of your income. But I have other goals too. I have a certain percentage that we're working toward. We haven't achieved all of this yet, but I have goals of how much I want to save every month. I have a certain percentage that I want to invest every month, but I'm most excited. I have a percentage that I want to work up to that we put into a God account every month. I love this idea. I didn't come up with this idea, but what if you had an account and you just every single month responsibly, excitedly, because of your own heart and what you love and are passionate, what you want to support, what you want to give to, what if you just had an account that you put a certain percentage in or a certain amount in every single month, and you just decided that's not for me, it's for whatever God wants to use it for. So that whenever the school fundraiser comes up, you're like, oh, there it is, it's ready to go. And you're not pulling out your pockets, well, what have I got left out of the leftovers of what you have? You already set it aside long ago. And whenever your neighbor down the street is losing their job or going through a tough time, or maybe they just had a baby, or maybe they just had a miscarriage or something, you say, you know what, I want to love on them. And you've got money there to just give them a boost or to help them get through a tough time or a new time or a big transition. You say, it's all ready to go. For me, that's really exciting to even think about. What kind of goals would you have? Say, this is what I would do if I was a generous person. I would just encourage you to start doing it. How would I use my money if I was a generous person? How would I invest it? How would I save it? Then just start doing it. Guess what? Suddenly, you're the generous person that you've always wanted to be. Now, earlier, I asked you to not raise your hand if you knew somebody who had been destroyed by money. Now I do want you to raise your hand if you know somebody. Raise your hand if you know somebody who walked away from a lucrative career and gained an incredible family relationship as a result. Do you know somebody who did that? Raise your hand if you know somebody or you yourself bought dinner for somebody who just moved into the neighborhood or just got out of the hospital and needed some meals. Have you ever seen somebody who's done that before? Doesn't it feel good to do that stuff? Can you just imagine that feeling? It feels good. Raise your hand if you know somebody who grew their family, added a family member through adoption, which is expensive, right? It's a lot of money. You say, well, that's not wise. Why would I do that? No, but they would say, I grew my family through adoption, or because they opened up their home to somebody who needed a place to stay, and that person's like family to them now. Do you know somebody who's done that? Doesn't that feel good? That's a good feeling. Do you know somebody, raise your hand if you know somebody whose family is really bonded and secure because they didn't let money split them whenever the inheritance came down. Do you know a family like that? Don't you want to be like that? I know people like that. I want to be like that. That's the good, true life that Paul's telling you about. If you build a foundation of contentment and generosity, that is the fruit that will be produced. That's the good life that will be produced in your life. To be content, generous, rich in good deeds. The good life, that good life is the fruit of generosity, I'm telling you. And in that way, you will lay up treasure for yourselves as a firm foundation for the coming age. And in that way, you will take hold of the life that is truly life. Guys, I want to thank you so much for being here with us today. That's the end of my sermon. I'm so glad that you guys were with us. And I just want to encourage you, if you're new around here, we would love to help you connect. You can do that very simply by texting the word connect to 817-687-9760. And if you text connect to that number, 817-687-9760, we're going to send you this water bottle. Or if you're here in person, you can simply stop by the Next Steps table in the lobby, and we will give you this water bottle as our gift to you today. And again, you can text connect to 817-687-9760. Next Sunday, we're going to talk about some decisions. And if you know somebody, or if you have never made the decision to follow Jesus, make sure you're here. Make sure you invite somebody. It's going to be a powerful weekend. And I just want to encourage you, if you're looking to build friendships and to find some community, don't miss our group connect after our next service, 12:15, be through these doors and upstairs in the terrace. We would love to help you find some friends and to build a community group. Y'all have a great day. We'll continue this series next week, but you are dismissed. Have a great week.